Harihi Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahana Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavai Tejasvinavaditamastu ma Vidvishavai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktavrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So let's go back a little bit and see the different adhikarmas, how they're connected again, so that we are aware of the broader picture. The beginning of this study, right, is marked by two doubts. So the beginning is dealing with Bhagavad-gītā, first one. And these two doubts are, is there an eternal spirit soul, different from the material body, and if such a soul exists, is it fully identical to God? So then the first adhikarma says that yes, indeed, the living entities are eternal, they're spiritual, and they're related to Krishna as servant to the master. So this is the first adhikarma. And then a doubt appears. The doubt is, do you remember? What about the material nature? Is she dependent or independent? And then next adhikarma says material nature is also dependent, it's subordinated.
But if it's subordinate to the living entity, then how does the living entity become covered by it?
Right, this is the next doubt. Thank you. And then the next adhikarma replies. The living entities are born of spiritual nature, but they have the tendency to enjoy material nature. So in a sense, they are superior, but also inferior, in a sense. They are superior, but if you want to enjoy something inferior, then if you have a tendency, this makes you in an inferior position. So this is the only way how can this be accomplished, because in the spiritual world, they all want to serve Krishna. And if somebody doesn't want to serve the Lord, then Krishna has to put him in a separate place. And he has to acquire a false identity. And this false identity is run by material nature. And then the next doubt arises. The next doubt is, okay, if the living entity is so deeply conditioned by Maya, how it is possible to be liberated from Maya's influence at all? So this is the next doubt. And this is our current adhikarma, adhikarma 4 that we are dealing with now. And how is this possible? Again, by the mercy of the Lord. The previous doubt. How is it possible that the superior energy is conditioned by the inferior energy, by the mercy of the Lord? And now again, this doubt, how is it possible to get liberated? Again, by the mercy of the Lord. Because Krishna comes himself, or he sends his confidential servants to reclaim these forgetful living entities. And then the next doubt is it possible for an ordinary person to approach God? Okay, in principle, we understand it is possible by Krishna's mercy. He comes personally, or he sends his representative. But how exactly? But these are, like somebody can say, these are some special souls. Like Gopakumara, Krishna became his guru. When Gopakumara went to Vaikuntha, Narayana told him, the Lord told him that he had to break his own rules. So in order to bring him out of the material world, the spiritual world. And the rules are that Krishna doesn't interfere with the free will of the living entity. but this time he brought this, and he appeared as his guru. So then somebody may say, well, this is for special souls, like Dhruva Maharaj saw God, some other great Vaishnavas, Prahlad Maharaj saw God, but what about the ordinary people? This is the next doubt. And then Adhikarana 5 says that the confidential servants of Godhead explained that any man can attain to transcendental loving service by his own occupation. So everybody can do it, following his own occupation. Svadharma. And then there is the last doubt for this section. The doubt is, but how is it possible to attain the transcendental Lord by performing material activities? Because our occupation, our dharma is material, right? Brahma, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, those are material designations. So by performing material duties, how is it possible to attain the transcendental Lord? And the answer to this is, well, they are not really material. Once they're connected to Krishna, they become spiritual life. And this is possible because Krishna is everywhere in his creation. He's all pervading. So he'll come down from his transcendent plane. He'll come down to the level of dharma, and from there he'll pick up all sincere followers of dharma. But he will not go down below dharma usually. Although we have these other examples. Like Nityananda Prabhu is very merciful. Narada Muni saved the hunter. So it happens, but usually you have to come up to the level of dharma, and then Krishna will pick you up, lift you up from there. Okay, so this is the first part of the study, thematic study of Bhagavad-gītā, Sambhava. And now we are in the middle of it, Adhikarana 4. Which one is our Adhikarana? The current Adhikarana, what does it say?
Godhead comes himself or sends his confidential servants to reclaim these forgetful living entities. The forgetful living entities can know God only if he explains himself or if he is explained by his confidential servants.
Okay, thank you. So, can somebody try to, again, to kind of summarize, in summary, to repeat what I have just explained? Go to different adhikaras. Oh, it's too much. Explain that. Okay, explain the initial doubt, then the answer to the doubt, then the next doubt, then the answer to this doubt. Not, but okay, but not today. But at one point you'll have to do this. So keep repeating this and then keep asking. Because it's good. It's part of the study. Otherwise, we get too much.
So I'll try, and you'll have to fill me in on where I forget, because I don't want to refer.
Yeah.
So
okay.
the first one is, does the soul exist?
Yeah.
And if so, is it equal to the Supreme Lord?
Very good. These are the two initial doubts. And the whole study guide begins with this. Okay.
Then we learned about the nature of the soul and how it's actually superior to material energy, but I'm missing something before that.
No, we learn exactly that the soul is eternal, is spiritual, and it depends on God.
Depends on God. But then we learned that material nature also depends on God and it is inferior.
Right.
Then the doubt is, if the nature is inferior to the spirit soul, how does the spirit soul become under influence?
Because it's illogical.
Right, it's superior, so how does it all of a sudden subordinate? Then it's explained that the jiva has the nature where, although it can be conscious.
We did skip one.
We did, right?
We did skip the adhikara that the doubt is okay. What about the material nature then? Maybe the material nature is independent of God. And then the second adhikara explains no, the material nature is also subordinate to Krishna. And then, but it is inferior to the living entity, and then the doubt appears. But how the inferior will condition the superior, and then
yeah, then it's explained that by the Lord's mercy, we have the opportunity to act as if they're separate from him, and then we become subordinate
to the material
under the influence of material nature. Then the question is, all right, well, since you're saying that the jiva is marginal, it can come under this illusion, but then it can come out. How does it come out? Or how did it go in the first place?
You explained so well how it is conditioned. You gave so vivid description that we are fully conditioned. And how is, if we are so conditioned, how is it possible to come out of this?
Yeah, to the Lord's mercy or the Lord's devotee.
Sense that, okay? All right, very good.
And that's where we're at now.
Yeah. So we don't. I gave the okay.
You gave the rest of some Bandhava.
And then the next doubt is, it is in principle possible. Okay, we understand by the mercy of the Lord, but how exactly is it possible? Because we're not so great about this as Dhruva Maharaj or Prahlad Maharaj. The Krishna will not come personally, perhaps for us. So the answer is, everybody can do it by performance of his own duty, according to Varnashram. Then the last doubt is, how you attain transcendence by performing material duties? It's illogical. You attain transcendence by transcendental means, not by material means. Okay? You good? Then the answer is no. You only think it is transcendent, it is material. When you connect your occupation to Krishna, it becomes spiritualized. And Krishna accepts this as devotional service, maybe not direct devotional service, but indirect, and then you get purified, and then develop taste for the direct, but okay. You have to learn this and be able to repeat this.
So the first one was existence of the soul, then was the relationship in the world?
Yeah.
Is it equal to the Lord?
Yes.
Or the relationship?
Is there such a thing as spirit soul, different from matter, from the body? And if there is, what is the relationship between the soul and God? Are they identical? Or they're different? And if they're different, then what is the relationship? Obviously, then God should be the master and the soul servant. This is the initial doubt.
So then comes the nature.
And then there is explanation of the nature of the soul. The soul is indeed spiritual, eternal, and it is subordinate to God. Okay. This is the first adhikara. And then
the material nature.
Then yes, the next doubt is, what is the state, the position, the status quo of the material nature. Maybe she's independent from Krishna. The answer is no, she's also dependent, subordinate. But she's inferior to the material nature, to the spiritual nature. So, and then?
So then why the entity falls into the lower nature when
it's
superior?
Mm-hmm. Because of the mercy of God. And then
how it comes?
How it's possible to come out of this illusion? By the mercy of God. How is this exactly working? Because it sounds very nice, but I don't see how practically this can happen. By following one's prescribed duties in connection to Krishna. Isn't it illogical to attain something spiritual by performing material activities? That's the last doubt. No, because these so-called material activities become spiritualized by connecting them with Krishna. Okay. And now, lesson 22, right? Page 50. No one can know Godhead unless he explains himself, or he is explained by his confidential devotee. So first, in the previous lesson, it says that Krishna understands himself. This is the way how it happens. Krishna comes himself or sends his confidential servants to reclaim this forgetful permission self. So first it is explained how do we attain the Lord in the previous lesson. In this lesson, we learn that how we will never attain the Lord by our own endeavor. So first it says, Srila Prabhupada says first, this is how you attain the Lord, and this is how you never attain the Lord. So this is how you never attain the Lord. No one? Yeah.
It's as if there was a doubt after hearing the lesson 21.
Yeah.
It's as if there was a doubt. Is there another way? Like, is that the only option, or is there? And then this is saying, no, there's no other option.
There is other option. Yes, very precise. There is no word. Anyway, so yeah.
So regarding this lesson 21, in parallel it can be not only Lord but also the devotee or pure devotee can.
Yeah, representative of Krishna. Yeah. Usually it happens through the representative of Krishna, to the spiritual master. Krishna very rarely mercy person.
So I read something about some interference of the higher living entities into our fate, right? If there is some disturbance on the planet Earth, they can also interfere and pick up this pious living entity. So is there any Puranic reference for that? Or
There is a purport by Srila Prabhupada, Bhagavad-gītā. The first canto. I'm not sure, but yes, I know. I read his purport. Prabhupada says that there is a unseen, invisible chain of cooperation between Krishna, the perfect devotees, between Krishna, demigods, and the devotees of men. What is the reference? The Pramana. These things happen. Also, in the Bhagavad-gītā, there is a description of the Harinam party of the Vishnu Dutas who come and roam about in different universes, performing Harinam. And in this way, helping everyone, but especially the devotees. So we may not be able to see it all the time. The demigods are devotees of Krishna, and they like to see that there are devotees on planet Earth. So they try to. Like recently, we had Ratha Yatra in our place, and you could see the forecast. Okay, for 10 days, it's only sun, nice weather. The day of the Ratha Yatra, there's clouds, and then when and then the next day there is again sunshine. So then when the time came near and near, when the date started approaching, then these clouds became rainy clouds, and then there was already a rain predicted. And then when there was like the Rath Yatra was the next day, it was like rain. There was the forecast for the Rath, and then before and then for many days there was just and then the day came, and sure enough, in the morning around 6 a.m. it starts raining. And kept raining till 8, 9. The devotees started. The devotees calling the temple saying, "Is the Rath Yatra cancelled? Perhaps because it's raining." And we said, "No, it's not cancelled. Everything is according to plan." And sure enough, a little before the official program started, the rain stopped. And then sunshine. And so the demigods took care to clear up the scene because it's summer, and then so much dust and it's hot. And then during the Rath Yatra, the parade, it was very pleasant. It was little clouds, little sun, not hot, not cold, just the perfect weather. And many devotees can attest to similar occasions. Of course, once we had also During Rath Yatra, there was a storm came, but this was okay. No one knows, no one can know Godhead unless he explains himself or he is explained by his confidential devotee. For one, the personality of Godhead, Lord Shri Krishna, said, I instructed this imperishable science of yoga to the son God Vivasvan, and Vivasvan instructed it to Mama, the father of mankind, and Mama in turn instructed it to Ikshvaku. No, I think we read this.
We did.
Okay, so then the next one. For two, this supreme science was thus received through the chain of cyclic succession. The saintly kings understood it in that way. But in due course of time, the succession was broken, and therefore the science as it disappears to be lost. This is the nature of the material world. Even if you have something good, it will deteriorate. Unless it's pure bhakti. Anything material, and even the spiritual parampara, even this can appear to be lost. It is clearly stated that Gita was especially meant for the saintly kings because they were to execute its purpose in ruling over the citizens. Certainly, Bhagavad-gita was never meant for the demonic persons who will dissipate its value for no one's benefit and will devise all types of interpretation according to personal needs. As soon as the original purpose was scattered by the motives of the unscrupulous commentators, there arose the need to re-establish the disciplic succession. So then, my question is then, if there is such a danger, great danger that Bhagavad-gita would be distorted in this way, then why are we
distributing it to
widely
saintly,
the general populace? Yes. A little later, well, not very little, but towards the end of Gita, Krishna will say that this knowledge should not be shared with certain type of people. Those who are not austere, those who never perform devotional service, the envious. No one? Okay, then in purport to this verse, towards the end of Gita, 18th chapter, Srila Prabhupada explains that the devotees are even more merciful than Krishna. And therefore they take the risk to approach even non-believers and try to induce them to accept. Still, there is also the one of the offenses against the holy name that we should not preach to the non-believers, to the faithless. Okay, but then when the original purpose is lost, then there is a need to reestablish the disciplic succession. When Srila Prabhupada presented his edition, his commentaries on Gita, he mentioned that practically there is no bona fide edition of Bhagavad-gita right now, and back then in English. So rare. All of them are following the, as here it is said, they're written by unscrupulous commentators who follow their own motives, material motives. Bhagavad-gita, accepted as it is a great boon to humanity. But if it is accepted as a treatise of philosophical speculations, it is simply a waste of time. So why it is a waste of time? And what does it mean to be accepted as treatise of philosophical speculation? What's the meaning?
If we just think that it's someone's opinion.
Someone's opinion means he has today this opinion, tomorrow he may change his mind. In other words, it is not absolute. Then it's a waste of time. Then, for three, that very ancient science of the relationship with the Supreme is today told by me to you because you're my devotee as well as my friend and can therefore understand the transcendental mystery of this science. There are two classes of men, namely the devotee and the demon. The Lord selected Arjuna as the recipient of this great science, owing to his being a devotee of the Lord. But for the demon, it is not possible to understand this great, mysterious science. In Bhagavatam, it is called Amapalakshavartmane, the Lord of the Krishna is the Lord of the unknown path. Nobody can know it unless he's devotee. There are a number of editions of this great book, knowledge. Some of them have commentators by the devotees, and some of them have commentaries by the demons. Commentation by the devotee is real, whereas that of the demons is useless. So we can have from one side commentary on Bhagavad-gita by a very erudite scholar who knows very good Sanskrit, can explain the grammar. He's well versed in different commentaries on Gita. He perhaps even knows the commentaries of Madhva and Ramanuja and even Srila Prabhupada, but he doesn't have faith in Krishna. And on the other hand, he may have a commentary or just a speech or presentation about Bhagavatam made by a very simple-hearted devotee who just studied only Srila Prabhupada books. He doesn't even know about other commentaries of the acharyas. So between these two, very scholarly, very refined presentation of Gita, and this very simple, made by non-devotee, and this very simple presentation made by sincere devotee of Krishna, even if he's not a Mahabhagavata, Uttamadhikari, but he's sincere devotee, follows sincerely, then the commentary, the presentation of the devotee is the real one, and the other one is illusion. It's actually not just illusion, it is dangerous, because it's one thing to present your own illusions, I mean, to have improper conception, but other things to propagate it, then the result is even worse. So it's very difficult sometimes to understand, fathom how this very simple devotee is higher than this very, very sophisticated, very aristocratic looking karma. Therefore, the acharyas, they warn us, we should never listen from non-devotees, especially about Bhagavad Shastra, but even about material things also. Let's say somebody comes here in the temple in the morning, some person from the street, dirty, and maybe he's high, and he says, I'm going to give the Bhagavatam class today. Then we will say, who are you? You are not qualified to speak on Bhagavatam, Bhagavad-gita. The thing is that they are not qualified to speak even on material subjects, because they don't know the connection between what they are talking and Krishna. Okay, commentation by the devotee is real, whereas that of the demons is useless. Arjuna accepts Sri Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And any commentary on the Gita following in the footsteps of Arjuna is real devotional service to the cause of this great science. So we accept also the commentaries of the other acharyas, even outside of our Sampradaya. Although we may have our own point of view and our own Siddhanta, still they're bona fide commentaries on Gita, because they're written by devotees. Okay, lesson 23. His descent, or so-called birth, is different from that of any ordinary being. So here is the reason why we cannot understand Krishna on our own. It's the reason for the previous lesson. The previous lesson was saying that there is no other way. No one can know God unless He explains Himself, or He is explained by His potential. Why? Because His descent or so-called birth is different from that of any ordinary being. In other words, Krishna is transcendental. It doesn't comply to our material ideas, conceptions. Therefore, unless He explains Himself for His devotees, then we don't know. Okay, 4.5. The personality of Godhead said, many, many births both you and I have passed. I can remember all of them, but we cannot all subdue the enemy. Devotees like Arjuna are constant companions of the Lord. And whenever the Lord incarnates, the associate devotee also incarnate in order to serve the Lord in different capacities. Arjuna is one of these devotees. And in this verse, it is understood that some millions of years ago, when Lord Krishna spoke the Bhagavad-gītā to the Sangha of Vivasvan, Arjuna, in a different capacity, was also present. But the difference between the Lord and Arjuna is that the Lord remembered this incident, whereas Arjuna could not remember. That is the difference between the part and parcel living entity and the Supreme Lord. Although Arjuna is addressed herein as the mighty hero who could subdue the enemies, he is unable to recall what had happened in his various past births. Therefore, a living entity, however great he may be, in the material estimation, can never equal the Supreme Lord. Anyone who is a constant companion of the Lord is certainly a liberated person, but he cannot be equal to the Lord. We may also note herein that the living entity forgets everything due to his change of body, but the Lord remembers because he does not change. He is Satchitananda body. He is Advaita, which means that there is no distinction between his body and himself. Everything in relation to him is spirit, whereas the conditioned soul is different from his material body. And because the Lord's body and self are identical, his position is always different from that of the ordinary living entity, even when he descends to the material platform. Okay. So what's the difference between the soul and the Lord? From what we have just read in the book.
So Lord doesn't change the body because his body is spiritual, but we are changing the body, so we are forgetting also.
Yes, and as a result we are forgetful. Okay. Okay. This answers all other questions. 4.6. Although I am unborn, and my transcendental body never deteriorates, and although I am the Lord of all living entities, I still appear in every millennium in my original transcendental form. The Lord has spoken about the peculiarity of his birth. Although he may appear like an ordinary person, he remembers everything, his many, many past births, whereas a common man cannot remember what he had done even a few hours before. Prabhupada, in one similar purport, he says, if somebody asks us what we have had for lunch the day before yesterday, we would have to think. Yes. Do you remember? Of course you remember.
So this also means that because of this change of body, because body is the second chapter in the beginning, Dehinosminata Deha, Krishna speaks that we are going from you to like this. So because of this change of body, we are also forgetting, or this is the cause, or it's different?
Yes, from what I understand, it mainly means the moment of changing the body after death. But also, we know that we're changing the body also during the lifetime. We forget also about this. Somehow the memory pertains to the body, because we have experienced something inside of this body, so when the body is gone, memory tends to fade away as well. Because it is connected with the body. Unless we have the special mercy of Krishna, and then we remember, like some devotees, Bhakti Maharaj, some other devotees. Okay. The Lord says that he appears in his own body. He does not change his body as the common living entity changes from one body to another. The conditioned soul may have one kind of body in the present birth, but he has different body in the next birth. In the material world, the living entity has no fixed body, but transmigrates from one body to another. That's far out. We don't have fixed body here. We don't have fixed body. We're always changing. It's very chaotic. It is very disturbing. Cannot be fixed in your identity. You have to change. Srila Prabhupada actually says, you may protest, you may beg the Lord, my dear Lord, please, okay, let there be suffering. I don't mind, I will suffer, I'm used to it. But at least let me stay. Let me stay. So, in other words, let me suffer forever in the material world, I'm okay. But at least spare me the, the pain of death and changing the body. But that's not possible. That's very, very precarious. Whenever he the Lord, however, does not do so whenever he appears. He does so in the same original body, by his internal potency. That's what we think about ourselves, right? We think this is our internal body. That's what we are. He appears exactly in his eternal body, uncontaminated by this material world. Although he appears in the same transcendental body and is Lord of the universe, it still appears that he takes his birth like an ordinary living entity. And although his body does not deteriorate like a material body, it still appears that Lord Krishna grows from childhood to boyhood and from boyhood to youth. But so this is the, you can say, maybe the Charis explained the advantage of Bhauma Lila, because here Krishna actually appears that he's born and then he grows. In Goloka Vrindavan, there is no such thing. He's never born there. So in this sense, these Bhauma Lila pastimes, they are even superior to the Goloka Vrindavan, although they are the same. And although his body does not deteriorate like material body, it still appears that Lord Krishna grows from childhood to boyhood and from boyhood to youth. But astonishingly enough, he never ages beyond youth. At the time of the battle of Kurukshetra, he had many grandchildren at home. Or in other words, he had sufficiently aged by material calculations. Still, he looked just like a young man, 20 or 25 years old. We never see a picture of Krishna in old age because he never grows old like us, although he is the oldest person in the whole creation, past, present, and future. Neither his body nor his intelligence ever deteriorates or changes. Therefore, it is clear that in spite of his being in the material world, he is the same unborn, eternal form of bliss and knowledge, changeless in his transcendental body and intelligence. So Krishna doesn't change. Time doesn't have influence on him unless Krishna wants the time to enhance his pastimes. 4.9. One who knows the transcendental nature of my appearance and activities does not, upon leaving the body, take his birth again in this material world, but attains my eternal abode, or Arjuna. We didn't answer the question in the previous one. Explain how the Lord remains transcendental in spite of being in the material world.
He doesn't have a material body.
Yes, so similar to the previous question. Not having a material body solves all the problems in future. Okay, 4.9. The Lord's descent from his transcendental abode is already explained in the 6th verse. One who can understand the truth of the appearance of the personality of Godhead is already liberated from material bondage, and therefore he returns to the kingdom of God immediately after quitting this present material body. Such liberation of the living entity from material bondage is not at all easy. The impersonalists and the yogis attain liberation only after much trouble and many births. Even then, the liberation they achieve, merging into the impersonal Brahmajyoti world, is only partial. And there is the risk of returning to this material world, but the devotee, simply by understanding the transcendental nature of the body and activities of the world, attains the abode of the Lord after ending this body and does not run the risk of returning to this material world. Okay. That's the question. Compare the liberation of the impersonalists and with that of the devotees. One is so-called liberation, not real. Here Prabhupada says only partial. Actually, I heard Shodra Maharaj was saying that this liberation is actually, the impersonal liberation is actually part of the Śāstra-cakṣuṣā, because you go back to the world. And the devotee, his liberation is perfect. Why? Because it's connected to Krishna. Okay, lesson 24. Man's misidentification with material nature is a malady from which fearfulness is born. Being freed from attachment, fear, and anger. This is very important verse. Important commentary. Being freed from attachment, fear, and anger, being fully absorbed in me and taking refuge in me, many persons in the past became purified by knowledge of me, and thus they all attained transcendental love to me. As described above, it is very difficult for a person who is too materially affected to understand the personal nature of the Supreme Absolute Truth. Generally, people who are attached to the bodily conception of life are so absorbed in the materialism that it is almost impossible for them to understand how the Supreme can be a person. I think Bhagavad-gītā was saying, commented that for them, Krishna, it's like Krishna doesn't exist for them, almost. Non-existent for them. Krishna says himself, for them I don't exist, because they want to ignore him, so Krishna doesn't exist. Such materialists cannot even imagine that there is a transcendental body which is imperishable, full of knowledge and eternally blissful. In the materialistic concept, the body is perishable, but full of ignorance and completely miserable. Therefore, people in general keep the same bodily idea in mind when they are informed of the personal form of the Lord. For such materialistic men, the form of the gigantic material manifestation is supreme. Consequently, they consider the Supreme to be impersonal. And because they are too materially absorbed, the conception of retaining the personality after liberation from matter frightens them. When they are informed that spiritual life is also individual and personal, they become afraid of becoming persons again. And so they naturally prefer a kind of merging into the impersonal void. Generally, they compare the living entities to the bubbles of the ocean, which merge into the ocean. This is the highest perfection of spiritual existence attainable without individual personality. This is a kind of fearful stage of life, devoid of perfect knowledge of spiritual existence. There is another verse from Bhagavad-gītā. Bhayam dvitiyani binveshtasya śāstra-cakṣuṣā vibhāgavasmiti. It explains that this fearfulness is born because of vibhāgavasmiti, because we think that our interest is separated from the interest of Krishna, and then we have our own goals, because we see that we cannot attain our goals. Our goals are regular, but with them we are fearful. Because we think we understand that this will happen again and again. 4:11. So surrender unto me, I reward them accordingly. Everyone follows my path in all respects. Also, okay, how does bodily identification become the cause of fear? Okay, that's clear. All right. The pure devotees, both here and in the transcendental both, associate with him in person and are able to render personal service to the Lord and thus derive transcendental bliss in his loving service. As for those who are impersonalists and who want to commit spiritual suicide by annihilating the individual existence of the living entity, Krishna helps also by absorbing them into his effulgence. Such impersonalists do not agree to accept the eternal blissful personality of God. Consequently, they cannot relish the bliss of transcendental personal service to the Lord, having extinguished their individuality. Therefore, for the devotees, this is hellish. This type of liberation, kaivalya, sayujya, mukti, because there is no devotional service. Lesson 25. Man's attempt to get rid of fearfulness of survival by work, knowledge, or mystic power is always a battle. So again, you see, the previous lesson was stating something, that we are fearful because we misidentify with material nature. And then this is very fearful. And then in this lesson, it says that you cannot get rid of this fearfulness by any material means, by work, by knowledge, or by mystic power. So this covers the karma, jnana, and yoga. Therefore, we say there is no other way, no other way, no other way. Because that means there is no other way through karma, through jnana, and through yoga. 4:16. Even the intelligent are bewildered in determining what is action and what is inaction. Now I shall explain to you what action is, knowing which you shall be liberated from all misfortune. Action in Krishna consciousness has to be executed in accord with the examples of previous bona fide devotees. To act in Krishna consciousness, one has to follow the leadership of authorized persons who are in a line of disciplic succession. As explained in the beginning of this chapter, therefore one has to follow in footsteps of previous authorities in the line of disciplic succession. Otherwise, even the most intelligent men will be bewildered regarding the standard action of Krishna consciousness. What is this bewilderment here?
If we're not following the footsteps of the previous authorities, we'll just be whimsically making stuff up or accepting from outside unauthorized sources. So,
and in other words, we will not understand what is action
to be done and what is not.
Yeah, what is in action is, because it's very interesting. In 6th chapter, Krishna says, "Anashrita karma palam karyam karma karati sada sasanyasi sasanyasi cha yogincha na niragni manchakriya." The real sannyasi, the real yogi, is the person who has become detached from the results of his action, not the person who doesn't like fire and doesn't perform duty. This type of knowledge can come only through this disciplic succession. Otherwise, we'll be bewildered. We will take the appearances as the reality of the substance. It is said that one cannot ascertain the ways of religion simply by imperfect experimental knowledge. Actually, the principles of religion can only be laid down by the Lord himself. Dharmam tu sakshat Bhagavad-gītā, Śrīmad Bhagavatam 6:3-19. No one can manufacture a religious principle by imperfect speculation. One must follow in the footsteps of great authorities like Brahma, Shiva, Narada, Manu, the Kumaras, Kapila, Prahlada, Bhishma, Shukadeva Goswami, Yamaraja, Janaka, and Bhari Maharaj. These are the 12 Maharajas. For 17. The intricacies of action are very hard to understand. Therefore, one should know properly what action is, what forbidden action is, and what inaction is. If one is serious about liberation from material bondage, one has to understand the distinctions between action, inaction, and unauthorized action. To understand Krishna consciousness and action according to its modes, one has to learn one's relationship with the Supreme. This is, in other words, or?
Yes.
Okay, in other words, one who has learned perfectly, knows that every living entity is an eternal servitor of the Lord, and that consequently one has to act in Krishna consciousness. The entire Bhagavad-gītā is directed toward this conclusion. Any other conclusions against these conclusions, this consciousness and its attendant actions are vikarmas or prohibited actions. So this is very important. This is the conclusion. Just like Krishna says, this is knowledge, and anything else different from this, I declare to be ignorance. So in the same way, Srila Prabhupada says, this is the conclusion, and any other conclusions which are against are vikarmas or prohibited actions. Any other conclusions. Just like Bhagavatam has Paribhasa Sutra, the main verse of Bhagavatam. All other verses of Bhagavatam and in the Vedas actually, because Bhagavatam is the main pramana. All other verses have to be in line with this verse. So which one is this?
Krishna's to Bhagavad-gītā.
Yes. Krishna's to Bhagavad-gītā. Eti Cham Shakalapam Sa Krishna's to Bhagavad-gītā. And the Acharyas explained that, oh, no electricity, so we don't record now.
No, it's good.
Yes.
It's going on?
Data.
Oh. The Acharyas explained that just like the general of the army is the main, or the king, is the supreme commander of the army, nobody can interfere with his decisions, with his orders. So in the same way, this verse is the most important verse, and it controls all other verses. So no verse can be interpreted in a way that is contrary to the meaning of the verse. So if somewhere it is stated that Shiva is the supreme, not Krishna, or Vishnu is the supreme, then this should be understood according to this verse. Cannot be understood here otherwise. Okay, 418. One who sees inaction in action and action in inaction is intelligent among men, and he is in the transcendental position, although engaged in all sorts of activities. So what is the meaning of inaction in action? And action in inaction, what is the meaning of this? How do you see inaction in action?
Well, so it's referring to akarma and karma. So one who sees the inaction as an akarma, and if the devotee is actively performing devotional service, but he sees that actually that's inaction because he's following the principles of devotion. So therefore, there's no reaction.
So that's the main thing. That there shouldn't be material reaction, good or bad. So therefore, it's called akarma, and this is accomplished by acting on behalf of Krishna.
Mm-hmm.
So what is the opposite? Action and inaction. What's action in the action? What's inaction in action? What's inaction in action?
The karma is not produced by acting Krishna consciousness.
Is the main topic of Bhagavad-gītā, the beginning of Bhagavad-gītā, especially the first 6 chapters. Arjuna is convinced that by taking part of this ghastly warfare, he will incur sin. Krishna takes a long time and very painstakingly explains to him that no, this is actually a karma. You will not have to suffer any sinful reaction because of this, because you don't do it if you do it in proper consciousness. If you do it because I order you, in order to please me, who is the supreme authority of the Vedas, then there will be no reaction. Okay, so then what is then action in action? Calculate this. Let's say you see some yogi
they have an action, but they have reaction.
Yes.
The first word action means reaction. Yes? Or
Action means that there will be reaction.
reaction. It's an action, this means no activity. Yeah.
Sorry, say again. Inaction means?
An action means they no activities.
Yes. Seemingly there is no activity. Seemingly they don't act because they're just sitting down and meditate. But actually, they're active in the sense that their false ego is still pushing them forward to disobey the orders of the Supreme Lord and to ignore their own position as Krishna servants. Therefore, they're still active. They're still actively involved in this material world by trying to reject it. They're just engrossed in this second function of the mind, which is sankalpa and vikalpa. They like to reject things without connection with Krishna. So this is action and inaction. They will still have to reap the results of their activities. Okay. So one who sees inaction in action and action in inaction is intelligent among men, and he is in the transcendental position, although engaged in all sorts of activities. A person acting in Krishna consciousness is naturally free from the bonds of karma. His activities are all performed for Krishna. Therefore, he does not enjoy or suffer any of the effects of work. Consequently, he is intelligent in human society. Krishna says, Sarva dharma paritijya manakam sharam. Aham tvam sarva papeda mokshisham. Consequently, he is intelligent in human society, even though he is engaged in all sorts of activities for Krishna. Akarma means without reaction to work. The impersonalist ceases fruitive activities out of fear, so that the resultant action may not be a stumbling block on the path of self-realization. But the personalist knows rightly his position as the eternal servitor of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, he engages himself in the activities of Krishna consciousness. Because everything is done for Krishna, he enjoys only transcendental happiness in the discharge of his service. So how to experience only transcendental happiness? When everything is done for Krishna. Everything is done for Krishna. There was one friend of mine, he told me that Kadamba Kana Maharaj was his bhakta leader. His bhakta karma name was Duncan. So Maharaj would tell him, everything for Krishna, nothing for Duncan. You understand? You say nothing for me? No. But this is the way, method for enjoying only transcendental happiness, nothing else. But then everything should be for Krishna. Krishna says in the Bhagavad-gītā, Yugyartat karma yatra lokuyam karma bandhana tadartam karma krantiya mukta sandasmacha. If we perform mixed devotional service, something is for Krishna, something is for me, then we'll be bound by the results of our activities. Those who engaged in the process of in this process are known to be without desire for personal sense gratification. The sense of eternal servitorship to Krishna makes one immune to all sorts of reactionary elements of work. Okay, let's get discussing. Then,
Question.
yes.
First, we say karma in action. First, this action in action, the karma. Yes, or opposite. You can say in action, I mean someone now nothing doing,
Yeah.
and in action, and he get action.
He's actually active.
No, I mean he in action, and then when he in action, then he get action, reaction.
Yes, so what's the question?
The question means where is a karma? Where is karma? I mean in action, on action, and in action.
Where is the karma?
Yeah, where is karma? Where is the karma? Because you can say karma means in action. Someone can say this karma because in action.
Well, we say that the first one, in action is akarma. Yes. And whatever anybody says, we don't mind so much. Let them say whatever they want. But that's what Krishna says. So in action means akarma, because you're active, but on the behalf of Krishna, and you're not doing it for yourself.
You can also, so it really is the principle, it's not in the wording. So sometimes when Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur talks about karma and akarma, it's not the same definitions as here. So you can also say that in one sense, an action that's going to get you a result, that means the devotional action, because that's the result that we're getting. So if you're just strictly speaking in those terms, then they flip. But the point is, whatever is getting you to Krishna, whether it's understanding that the activity that you're doing is linked with Krishna, right? Or understanding that if I try to cease from activities, I'll still be engaged in thinking of these things. So therefore, it's going to get a material reaction. So however we want to situate it, if we actually have the understanding, then we understand it. That's why it's one who sees that is intelligent among men. And what does he do? Does he sit there? No, he engages in all sorts of activities because he knows how to properly engage those activities. So the second one in our context is when Arjuna was saying, it's better if I just go into the woods and meditate than to perform my duty. I don't want to do this action, as in duty, right? But Krishna's pointing out, no, you'll be there, but you're still going to be, acquiring a reaction for not doing your prescribed duty.
And also, Krishna was pointing out that you'll be the same Arjuna, the same material propensities, and you'll fight anyway. Only that this time it will be outside of your duty, at the purview of your duty, it will be whimsical, and it will be simple. Because this action in action, it means that you may suppress the senses for a while. Therefore, Krishna says, what can suppression accomplish? You can abstain from activities for a certain amount of time, but we cannot sustain this because we are active by nature. The soul is active. Prabhupada says it is not a question of conditioned life of the jiva, because this is what some people say. The soul is active in the material world when it's connected with the gross and subtle body. Then it's active. Otherwise, originally the soul is inactive. Lots of people say from Saddarshans, the Sankhya say this. Pretty much everyone, Vaisheshika, Yaya. But Krishna says in Bhagavad-gītā that we cannot stay idle even for a moment, because we are always pushed by the three moments.
Also, the reason these two have to be there is because it's not that any action that we perform is going to be connected. It has to be according to our nature. That's why then Krishna says it's better to engage in your own nature, even faultily, than to do someone else's duty perfectly. Because if you're doing someone else's duty, even though if you're doing it in a very expert manner, you're not dealing with your conditioning, you're dealing with someone else's. So you're not going to become purified, so you're not actually doing it for Krishna, you're doing it for yourself. Or maybe for that person, but it's not for Krishna. So we have to see both aspects of this. Otherwise, we're just going to perform some sort of duty, it might not be ours, and it's not going to actually address our conditioning, right? So therefore, you have to see both sides of it, inaction in action and action in inaction. Because otherwise, you'll be engaged in all sorts of activities, but you might be actually involved in karma, right? But those who actually see both, then they're intelligent, they're in the transcendental position, they're not getting more karma, but they're still doing these activities because they see the connection.
I like the point that you made that if this is not our duty, we want to become purified because we have certain material nature. Therefore, itself, it is called self-realization. It is you who has to attain self-realization, and this happens through your material nature.
Right. It's like when, say, my brother and I, we were in school. He's older than I am, so he's in high school and I'm in elementary school. If he helps me do my homework, I'm not doing it, but he's not getting credit for that because, you know, he's not getting any benefit at all from doing my homework because, of course, he knows that. He doesn't have to purify that within himself, so he's making no benefit whatsoever. So similarly, if we're doing someone else's duty and we're thinking, look how good I'm doing that. I'm doing it perfectly. You can't say that it's not proper. I'm doing it better than he could, right? But you're not getting anywhere from it. You've already done that. You've dealt with it. So same thing as our conditioning is due to our modes of material nature. So we've already, if we're not covered by those modes, then we're not purifying those modes. So we're not getting anywhere. We have to purify the modes that are actually covering us, right? It's like trying to clean the dirt off of the mirror that's not there, right? And we have to deal with the stuff that's there, not the stuff that's not.
And usually, precisely this part is the most painful, usually, because this is your duty.
Exactly.
And you try to avoid it, to pretend that, no, it's not my duty. This is actually, this is my duty, I like this better, but it's not. You have to go back to your duty. Amazing. Yes, Prabhu.
Does it apply only for material duties or also spiritual duties, that there will be some reaction if we don't do what we are supposed to do, but do some different spiritual activity?
This verse from Sri Guru Vastakam, Yasya Prasada Bhagavad-gītā. So the reaction will be that we will not advance, although we may not acquire some material karma as a result. Because it's spiritual activity, but if the spiritual master is not pleased, he tells us, bring me water, we bring milk. It's not a bad thing, but if he's not pleased, then we cannot advance properly. And usually, why would we perform some other spiritual activity if we are told to perform this spiritual activity? Usually, what's the reason behind it?
Attachment. Or we think we know better.
Yeah, this also.
Why is this guru asking for water? Milk is better, everybody knows that, but maybe he wanted to wash his hands.
Why he wants me to become just guest house manager, for example. I know that Prabhupada said that the book distribution is the best thing. So I'm just gonna tell him to get lost, and I'll do what I know will please Krishna more. I'll just do book distribution, for example. Not bad, but if the guru is not pleased, you cannot advance. Maybe also, it could be also offensive. If we consider the guru an ordinary person. Okay, lesson 26. Living entities seek happiness by serving another living entity, driven by a false desire for enjoyment. 720. Those whose intelligence has been stolen by material desires surrender unto demigods and follow the particular rules and regulations of worship according to their own natures. Prakritas svaya. My own nature. I pick up from the different options according to my own understanding. Less intelligent people who have lost their spiritual sense take shelter of demigods for immediate fulfillment of material desires. Generally, such people do not go to the Supreme Personality of Godhead because they are in the lower modes of nature, ignorance and passion, and therefore worship various demigods. Following the rules and regulations of worship, they are satisfied. The worshippers of demigods are motivated by small desires and do not know how to reach the supreme goal. But the devotee of the Supreme Lord is not misguided. Because in Vedic literature there are recommendations for worshipping different gods for different purposes. For example, a deceased man is recommended to worship the sun. Those who are not devotees of the Lord think that for certain purposes demigods are better than the Supreme Lord. But a pure devotee knows that the Supreme Lord Krishna is the master of all. In the Śāstra-cakṣuṣā, Adi 5:142, it is said, Ekale Ishvara Krishna Ara Sarvabhritya. Only the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna is master, and all others are servants. Therefore, a pure devotee never goes to demigods for satisfaction of his material needs. He depends on the Supreme Lord, and the pure devotee is satisfied with whatever he gives. So this is a very important principle to approach the Lord, to depend on Krishna. This is one of there are 6 principles, 6 symptoms of surrender. This is one of them. That Krishna is our maintainer, he is our protector. We don't depend on anyone else but him. Oh, but still Krishna allows demigod worshippers to exist and to perform their worship, right? He doesn't destroy them because he's not jealous or envious. And even in Bhagavad-gītā, Krishna says, Yepi anya devata bhaktya bhajante shradadam vidhana tepi mam eva kantya bhajante avidi purvakam. Krishna says, actually they worship me, all these demigod worshippers. In actuality, they worship only me. All these worshippers of the small gods, the demigods. But they do this avidi purvakam, in proper understanding. So Krishna is very accommodating in this sense. At the same time, he makes the point that this is not the best worship. It is conducted by the lower modes. And also, even if you do it, if you choose to ignore Krishna and to worship the demigods, Krishna doesn't, as in retaliation, doesn't put people to hell. In hell, he doesn't punish them. If you're a good guy, then you will and you develop the mode of goodness, you will progress in life. Urdhvam gachanti sattva. Those who develop the mode of goodness, they go upwards in the universe, even if they don't worship Krishna. 721. I am in everyone's heart as a super soul. As soon as one desires to worship some demigod, I make his faith steady so that he can devote himself to that particular deity. So the demigods cannot even invoke this devotion and faith. It has to be done through Krishna. Some may ask why the all-powerful God gives facilities to the living entities for enjoying this material world and so lets them fall into the trap of the illusory image. The answer is that if the Supreme Lord, as Super Soul, does not give such facilities, then there is no meaning to independence. Therefore, he gives everyone full independence, whatever one likes. But his ultimate instruction, we find in the Bhagavad-gītā, one should give up all other engagements and fully surrender unto him. That will make man happy. 722. Endowed with such a faith, he endeavors to worship a particular demigod and obtains his desires. But in actuality, these benefits are bestowed by me alone. So this is proper Vedic understanding. There are different types of worship, but Krishna understands these people actually try to worship me, but they don't know, they live in this. Some other people say no, they worship different God. There is the God and there is the false, the enemy of God. But the original traditional understanding is that even if they don't worship according to your method of worship, they're still worshiping the same God that you worship. But they might be less developed in their understanding, they might be not so advanced, therefore belong to different culture. Therefore, the worship itself looks different. The details are different, but the principles are the same. Still, Bhakti-yoga says, still, although this is true, well and true, still, when there is a discrepancy in the particular mode of method of worship, it has to be pointed out. And this discrepancy is impersonal. So in one sense, we accept that, yes, everybody is worshipping Krishna. But when there is a fault in their worship, we are supposed to point it out. So we're not neither sentimentalists or dogmatic fanatics. Yes.
What is the connection when somebody is worshipping demigod to Krishna?
What is the connection between demigod worshippers and Krishna? Every time when the demigod is worshipped, then there should be worship of Krishna also. This is a requirement for the proper performance of the yagya. Also, Krishna says in Bhagavad-gītā, yagya śāstra-cakṣuṣā. Krishna, and then they offer it to the demigods, and they worship, and then they distribute this to the people. And also, who is performing this yagya? Brahmanas. And some Brahmanas will be devotees of Krishna. Some will be just ritualistic Brahmanas, but some will be devotees. By performance of, by associating with such Brahmanas, by eating this sanctified food, by associating with the learned priests, some of them will be Vaishnavas, and gradually, the idea is that the demigod worshippers will understand that Krishna is the highest object of worship. So this is the connection. Yes.
You can see from life this mention the living entities seek happiness by serving another living entity.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean it's demigods. Some people see they have, how to say, worship some powerful man or some other.
Yeah.
They try to make some facility for their life.
Yeah.
Nicely. What does it mean? They don't have faith to Krishna? No.
Everybody tries to worship somebody who thinks he's in a superior position, because he thinks by worshiping this person I will get benefit. So if you're not so developed to understand that there are demigods, then you worship other persons who are not even demigods, but you consider them higher than you. Like Prabhupada says, some people were worshiping demons, ghosts, or some person who was worshiping Hitler. Anyone, if it's not the real demigod, you put him in a position of demigod. In your own life, this is your demigod. So some football, sports star, or some movie stars, some musicians, some artists. It's the same principle, but it depends on the piety of the person. Whether he has require piety to actually understand the demigods, the real demigods, or he doesn't. So then he makes his own demigods, so to say, and worships them according to his own rules. Or serving other living entities in immediate family circle, parents. Yeah. Okay. Yes.
So in this connection, what Prabhu mentioned, it won't be the same result like worshiping demigods, because the connection is not there, it's not authorized.
Between worship of demigods and worshiping Krishna?
No, I mean demigods and those normal.
No. Yeah, no. Because demigods are empowered by Krishna to give boons. And these people that are being worshipped today, they are just ordinary living entities, not empowered by anyone. They just have better karma.
Krishna comes. Some devotees, they worship to Krishna. At the same time, they worship some powerful person, and they try to get some benefit. What is spirit devotional service or mixed devotional service? How it's split? It obviously looks not clear.
Oh, here there was an explanation here. Prabhupada, someone purpose, he was saying that those who are not devotees of the Lord think that for certain purposes demigods are better than the Supreme Lord. So it seems to me the same principle. I'm devotee Krishna, but for some purposes I think I can get better result by worshiping some other powerful entity and get the result quicker, or maybe because Krishna is not Hari, it actually takes away. And if I worship him, he will not give me material things, so that I worship somebody else. In any case, it is not pure bhakti, because it betrays lack of faith and lack of proper philosophical understanding. It's kind of mystery bhakti. We have examples of great devotees who worship the demigods in Bhagavatam, but they worship demigods as representatives of Krishna. They are those who want quick fulfillment of their material desires, they worship demigods. So, they became almost crazy because of strong lust. They worship demigods. So this is Krishna's opinion about demigod worshippers. He calls them alpa medasa. small intelligence. So what about then the people who don't even worship the demigods? They're not qualified even to worship the demigods. A Buddha, yeah. Well, he calls the Buddha the Mayavadis. He calls them even less charitable, Buddha. But you get the point. They're even lower. But they just worship some human being.
Some devotees in Vrindavan worship Kali or some devotee. Because I talked with one devotee in Vrindavan, he said some authority in our temple we worship Kali to get some benefit. But how we should
it's definitely
deal with this? How explain to this devotee what is?
I wouldn't bother explaining to them. You know, they have been ISKCON devotees for a long time, and they ended up like this. That means they are pretty determined, and they made their mind. But it is not in our line. Prabhupada never established worship. Our founder Acharya never encouraged us to do so. In fact, there was somebody who asked Prabhupada, "Can I worship Ganesh?" Prabhupada said, "If you give me, I don't remember, some big money every month, $100,000 or something, then you can worship Ganesh." So it's not in our line. The devotees want to do it. If you worship the demigods as represent, like for example, we saw in South India, they were worshiping the Madhvas. There was a temple of Durga Devi, and they're worshiping Durga Devi, but as Krishna's sister, like Subhadra Devi, not like they worshiping. And they'll be now Kali Puja. Here in Bengal, it's quite different. In this way, you can do, but Prabhupada never did it. He didn't teach us to do that. That means, like Krishna already explained, you have some material desires and you want to make sure that they will be fulfilled as quick as possible. Because with Krishna, you never know. Because Krishna doesn't just fulfill desires, he always takes in consideration whether this is good for you, for your spiritual development. But if you don't want to think in this way, you just want a quick relief, you worship demigods. That's what Krishna says.
It's tough when explaining things like this, because if you explain, for example, that devotee's motive to this other devotee, then you may be encouraging them to also do it, So best is to refer to these verses, say, look, if we have some desires, Krishna is going to give us faith to pursue those things. But it shouldn't be done. That's not what our goal is. So that's an example we shouldn't criticize, nor should we follow it. That's always the best policy in those circumstances.
Because if regularly go to South India, some devotees still a big devotee. No, I mean a big devotee, but still they worship Ganesh or Anjaneya, Tanchimukh Hanuman. No, of course, Hanuman we can accept. But some other, they worship Lakshmi, all this. And how to have deal with this? How to explain devotee? They became devotee, they chant 16 rounds, but at home they still worship everyone. We can.
They got this association. They saw this somewhere because they were not keeping association inside the state boundaries of Sri Prabhupada. They saw this somewhere and they liked it because it is, who knows for how many lifetimes they're connected to these things. So in this life they were attracted by the Sankirtan movement, but it doesn't mean that they don't.
We shouldn't push them.
No, I wouldn't. But I wouldn't also associate closely with these people. Or I would respect them. I don't think this should be our calls friendly circle.
I think in my opinion, we should explain them how to properly worship them, how they should connect with Krishna.
If they ask you, or if you're somehow their authority, you can do that. Otherwise, you can't just walk up to someone and say, "Hey, this is what you should be doing, man." Like, okay, who are you? Oh, by the way, my name is. I've been in the movement for a while, so I know.
Yeah.
You know, so there should be some relationship, and there should also be the relationship should go in that direction. If they're not taking you as an authority, don't give them any advice because they're not going to take it. They're just going to say, "Who's this fool? Why are they telling me what to do?" But if they ask you, or if you're in a position where you're in some management position and they're under you, then you can do like that. But otherwise, just to walk up to a peer, someone that's essentially on the same level that you have no relationship with, you can't do that. Because Krishna doesn't do that either. He doesn't interfere, right? He says, if that's where you want to go, I'll give you the faith to worship that deity. But you have small intelligence. So if you continue to do that and you actually have sincerity, then you'll then be encouraged to put your faith in Krishna instead of these devatas, because you'll realize that, okay, maybe I'm getting some quick result, but it's not an eternal result, right? So the more sincere we become, the more open we are to actually understand. So when these devotees become more sincere, that's when they start asking other devotees, hey, I've been doing like this for a while, but I'm starting to have some doubts. What do you think? Then you can tell them everything you want. Until then, it could just disturb their minds. But if someone's asking about someone else, like, oh, I've noticed that someone is worshiping these devatas, then like I said, you don't criticize them, but you don't want to encourage that behavior in someone else either. So you said it's best you avoid like that, but definitely don't judge that devotee. He's going through whatever he's going through. His heart's, focused on Krishna, but he has this other thing that he's doing, but, it's not something that you want to imitate. It's a tough situation because you want to help the person, but if the relationship's not there, you can't.
Yeah. It requires first sambandha. If there's no sambandha, the rest will not work. All right. Stop here. Om Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jai Shri Prabhupada ki Jai, Samavita Bhakti ki Jai, Jai Nitai Gaur Premanande.